"You're either a team player or you're gone," Robert Lang said, his voice cutting through the tension in the room. He slid the termination papers across the polished oak table with a practiced smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Your choice, Elena." I stared at the document bearing my name, Elena Morales, Senior Accountant, Fairview Holdings, and felt a strange calm wash over me. 6 years of dedicated service, countless late nights, and this was how it ended? Being forced to choose between my integrity and my livelihood. "I won't falsify financial statements for the audit," I replied, my voice steadier than I expected. "Not for you. Not for anyone." Robert's smile faded, replaced by a cold, calculating stare. "Then I believe we're done here." Without another word, I signed the termination papers. No arguments, no pleas, no emotional outbursts. I simply picked up my pen and signed away 6 years of my career at Fairview Holdings, a mid-sized real estate investment firm in Hartford, Connecticut, that I had helped build into a respected name in the industry. As security escorted me to clear out my desk, I felt the eyes of my colleagues following me through the open-plan office. Some looked away, too uncomfortable to witness my disgrace. Others watched with undisguised curiosity. My assistant Vanessa approached with tears in her eyes, but security stepped between us. "Personal items only," the guard instructed as I emptied my desk drawer. "Company laptops and phones stay." I nodded, carefully placing framed photos, my coffee mug, and a few books into a cardboard box. What they didn't know was that I had anticipated this moment. For months, I had been documenting every questionable directive, archiving incriminating emails and taking screenshots of Slack conversations where executives discussed massaging the numbers and creative accounting for the upcoming audit. At 39, I was too experienced to be naive. When the pressure to adjust financial records began 3 months ago, I knew exactly where it was heading. I had seen it before at other companies, the subtle hints evolving into direct demands, all leading to the same place: fraud. As I walked through the lobby for the last time, box in hand, I caught my reflection in the glass doors. My dark hair was pulled back in its usual neat bun, my expression composed despite the turmoil within. I wasn't just leaving a job, I was standing at the precipice of a moral decision that would ripple through many lives, including my own. Tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow I would show Robert Lang and the entire executive team what happens when you fire the one person who knows where all the bodies are buried. The person who did things by the book, no exceptions. My condo in downtown Hartford had always been my sanctuary, but that night it felt more like a war room. Spread across my dining table were printed copies of emails, financial statements, and meeting notes, physical backups of the digital trail I had meticulously preserved over the past few months. I had always been the careful one, the meticulous record keeper. It was both my greatest professional strength and, according to my ex-husband Jason, the reason our marriage had failed 3 years ago. "You're too rigid," he had said during our last argument. "Life isn't a balance sheet, Elena." Perhaps he was right about life. But in accounting, precision was everything. And right now, precision was my only weapon. I pulled up the email I had drafted earlier that day, addressed to all 7 members of Fairview Holdings' board of directors. The message was simple and factual, with no emotional language or accusations. Just the truth, laid bare in black and white, with dozens of attachments proving systematic financial misrepresentation ordered by Chief Financial Officer Robert Lang. It seemed the first evidence was appearing to support that belief. Still, as I drifted off to sleep, I knew this story was far from over. The real fallout was just beginning, and morning would bring new battles to face. The following morning, Fairview Holdings stock had dropped nearly 15% by the time I arrived for my meeting with Diana Frost. The company lobby, normally buzzing, was eerily quiet, except for a few reporters hoping to catch someone for comment. Security escorted me to the executive floor, the same floor I was kicked out of just 2 days ago. Diana was waiting in the boardroom with two others, Terrence Walker from Fairview's legal team and Josephine Alvarez, an outside attorney specializing in corporate compliance. "Thank you for coming, Alina," Diana began. "We've initiated a full-scale independent investigation, but the board wants to hear your perspective on how deep this goes." Josephine interjected, clarifying that Elena was a protected whistleblower under federal law, not a hostile party. Elena appreciated the sentiment, though she suspected it was more about minimizing Fairview's liability. For the next hour, Elena laid it all out. The evolution of the fraud, how it started small and became increasingly bold. Robert Lang had carefully compartmentalized the fraud to keep others in the dark. But Elena, as senior accountant, was the central node. She saw everything. Terrence asked, how many others were knowingly involved? Based on direct evidence, only Robert Lang and CEO Thomas Wilson, Elena replied. Others may have suspected, but Lang ensured plausible deniability. Then came the unexpected. Diana offered Elena her job back, with a promotion and a major pay bump. Elena declined. "May I ask why?" "The compensation would be quite generous." "Because the problem goes beyond Robert and Thomas. The board approved bonuses tied to metrics that made no sense. Either you failed your duty or turned a blind eye," Elena said. The room went silent. Diana tried to recover, but Elena stood her ground. Returning to Fairview would compromise her integrity as a whistleblower. As she left the building for the final time, Elena received an email from the SEC requesting an interview. The federal investigation was officially in motion. 3 weeks later, she sat in a downtown cafe with Benjamin Harris, the journalist whose reporting had pushed the story national. The Fairview scandal was now shaking the entire real estate investment sector. "Just to confirm," Benjamin said, "you're comfortable with being quoted on the timeline?" Elena nodded. "Everything attributed to me is accurate. But remember our agreement. This interview is about corporate accountability, not personal vendettas." "Absolutely," Benjamin agreed. "Though readers love a personal angle. Any interest in sharing how it felt to watch Fairview's stock drop 30% since the scandal broke?" I sipped my coffee, choosing my words. "I take no pleasure in watching a company I helped build suffer, Benjamin. Many honest employees are now facing uncertainty because of decisions made by a few." He looked a little disappointed, but jotted a note. "Fair enough. What about the SEC investigation? Sources say you've had multiple interviews with federal regulators." "I can't comment on an ongoing investigation." My answer was practiced and precise. Just then, I got a call from an unknown number. Normally, I'd let it go to voicemail, but something told me to answer. "Elena Morales speaking." "Miss Morales, this is William Bennett, Chief Compliance Officer at Thornmere Financial." The name stopped me cold, one of Fairview's biggest competitors. "We'd like to meet about a potential opportunity." I set a meeting for the next day and returned to Benjamin, who raised a brow. "Another job offer? That's the third one since we sat down." It was true. Since the story broke, I had multiple job inquiries. Some companies saw me as a liability, others as a valuable symbol of integrity. "Would you believe me if I said it was a cold call about my car's extended warranty?" I joked. Benjamin laughed. Then he got serious. "There's something you should know before the article goes live. I found links between Fairview's fraud and Redwood Capital Partners." My blood ran cold. Redwood was a massive private equity firm with influence across dozens of industries. "What kind of links?" "Suspicious financial flows, overlapping board members, and nearly identical accounting irregularities. I think Fairview might just be the tip of the iceberg." If he was right, my whistleblowing had rippled into something much larger, potentially threatening people with serious power. My phone buzzed. "You've made your point. Walk away now if you know what's good for you." I showed the message to Benjamin. "Are you going to report this?" "Already did," I said, forwarding it to my lawyer. The warning only confirmed it. This rabbit hole went deep. The next day, I arrived at Thornmere Financial's sleek downtown offices. I was ushered into a boardroom where William Bennett, CEO Victoria Larson, and Head of Internal Audit, Imani Johnson, were waiting. We followed the Fairview situation closely. Victoria said, "We're impressed by your integrity." William nodded. "In today's regulatory climate, we need someone with technical skills and moral courage." Victoria continued, "We'd like to offer you the position of Chief Compliance Officer, reporting directly to me, full board access, and a significant staffing budget." It was more power and pay than I ever had at Fairview. "That's generous," I replied. "But why such a bold offer to someone you've never worked with?" Victoria and William exchanged a glance. "Honesty," Victoria said, "and fear. Not of you, fear of being the next Fairview." Imani added, "I reviewed your models during the Westridge development bid last year. They were flawless. Talent like that is rare." The Thornmere offer sounded great, almost too perfect. Something felt off. "Before I consider your offer," I said, "I need to ask a difficult question. What is Thornmere's relationship with Redwood Capital Partners?" The mood shifted immediately. Victoria's smile faded slightly. Her posture stiffened. "They're a minority investor in some of our development projects," she replied cautiously. "Why do you ask?" "Because I've received information suggesting Red may be tied to the same financial irregularities I uncovered at Fairview, and I've received a threat warning me to stop digging." Imani leaned forward, serious now. "What kind of threat?" I showed them the anonymous text message. "You've made your point. Walk away now if you know what's good for you." "That's concerning," William said slowly. "It has everything to do with your offer," I countered. "If I take this role, I need full independence to investigate any potential wrongdoing, including that of major investors." Silence. "Let me be candid," Victoria said. "We want to avoid becoming the next Fairview. If you have concerns about Redwood, we want to know." "Or," I said, "you already know, and you're offering me this job to keep me close and quiet." The silence that followed was answer enough. "I think we're done here," I said, standing. As I walked to the elevator, William followed. "You're making a mistake. We genuinely need someone like you." "Then prove it. Launch an independent audit of all Redwood-connected projects. No internal cover-ups. When that's done, we can talk." I left, unsure if I'd just dodged a bullet or turned down real change. The SEC investigation moved fast. 6 weeks after I filed my whistleblower complaint, I sat in a federal conference room with my attorney as Special Agent Diaz laid out the charges. "Robert Lang and Thomas Wilson are being charged with securities fraud, false financial filings, and conspiracy," he said. "Much of it is based on your evidence, Miss Morales." Even 2 board members, including Diana Frost, were being charged with willful blindness and failure of fiduciary duty. Redwood's investigation? Still ongoing, slower and more difficult, thanks to their power and legal teams. Agent Diaz slid a card across the table. "When you're ready, there's someone in the Financial Crimes Division who'd like to speak with you. Your expertise could be valuable." I was stunned. Working with federal regulators hadn't crossed my mind, but it made sense. As we exited the building, my attorney handed me a folder. "The SEC's final whistleblower award just came through. You're being awarded 15% of the total penalties assessed against Fairview." I opened the folder and gasped. "Over $2 million. That's what happens when you uncover a fraud worth hundreds of millions," Hila said. "You did the right thing, and for once, it paid off." For the first time since this started, I felt something like vindication. 1 year later, I stood at the podium of a corporate ethics conference, addressing a room full of financial professionals, regulators, and compliance officers. My keynote, "Ethical Accounting in the Age of Pressure," had drawn a bigger audience than expected. I began, "The pressure to compromise doesn't arrive all at once." "The pressure to compromise doesn't arrive all at once," I told the audience. "It begins with small requests, rationalizations, and a culture that values results over methods. By the time someone asks you to commit outright fraud, you've often already been conditioned to say yes. In the front row sat my team from the firm I founded 6 months ago, Integrity Financial Advisory. Using my SEC Whistleblower Award as seed money, I had launched a consultancy focused on forensic accounting and building ethical compliance systems. Real integrity, I continued, isn't just saying no to fraud. It's creating systems where ethical behavior is rewarded and transparency is the default, not the exception. After the speech, while mingling, a familiar face approached. Vanessa, my former assistant from Fairview. "That was amazing," she said, hugging me. "Though I'm biased, I work for the speaker." Hiring Vanessa as my operations director had been one of my first decisions. Her loyalty during the Fairview crisis proved her character without question. "How are the new clients coming along?" I asked. "We just signed Oakwind Technologies. That's 14 clients in 6 months. We're going to need more staff." "We'll find them," I said. "The right people. Ones who value integrity over convenience." As we chatted, I got a news alert. Robert Lang sentenced to 8 years for securities fraud. I felt no joy, just a quiet confirmation. Justice, like accounting, had finally balanced its books. My revenge had never been about personal victory. It had been about truth, about proving that, in finance as in life, integrity is the only currency that never devalues. In the wake of the scandal, I hadn't just rebuilt my career. I transformed it into something meaningful. While Fairview struggled to recover under new leadership, I was helping other companies avoid the same fate. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies, but building something better from the ashes of what they took from you.